Howdy, and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone. I am joined today by Robert Behrens of GoodBullHunting.com. Robert, 6 games in. The season always flies by fast. It does not feel like it should be halfway over at this point. But 6 games in, bye week, had our strongest performance in the most recent game against Missouri. How's the vibe right now? Let's do a vibe check on. I think we had you on last in the week of Notre Dame. Obviously, took a dip, steadily climbed back up, bit of a roller coaster, and now we're at the top of the roller coaster right now. So, 6 games left, everything on the table. How we feeling?
Yeah, man, I feel like if you're gonna be 5-1, this was the way to do it. Because start off kind of with not the lowest of lows, because we all knew that Notre Dame was a losable game, but certainly right out of the gate, you start questioning what this team is going to be, what their ceiling is. And then, like you said, kind of, it's just been that steady climb back up the mountain over the past 5 weeks. And really, I would say for the most part, each game being a little bit more impressive than the last one. I think with maybe the exception of Bowling Green. But yeah, to sit here right now, 5-1 overall, 3-0 in SEC play, more importantly. And even though that Missouri game, winning 41-10, it's hard to really imagine a better way to go into the bye week, but it also made the bye week, I feel, seem that much longer because
it's been excruciating.
Yeah, I mean, because when you see your team play that well, you just want to keep on going. You're like, let's play again tomorrow. Whereas, if you're kind of limping into the bye, sometimes you're maybe a little ready for a respite, ready for a weekend off. But yeah, so it's just given us really 2 weeks to sit here and stew on what this rest of the season could look like. And understandably, I think most A&M fans are pretty excited about the potential, for good reason.
Yeah, and I'm going to knock on wood as I say this, but your point there about limping in, which A&M is not doing at all. I think they've lost 2 starters for the season in Mark Naboo and Tyreek Chappelle, which, it sucks to lose Naboo, but we've had several guys on the interior be able to fill in with very little drop off, if any drop off at all, on the offensive line. So they've been able to survive that pretty well. I think Chappelle hurts pretty bad. We're still looking to get better production out of the nickel spot, but when you look around the country and it's you've played 3 SEC games, one against Notre Dame that was a very physical game, and they're just in really good shape right now. I think Elko even mentioned that the bye comes at a good time. You get a little break. If someone had a nagging injury, a little more time off to recover, and heck, our quarterback, assuming he sounds like he's over whatever it was that ailed him with the shoulder, so having even more time to get that healed and not take any hits on that, that's a positive for sure. But over the first 6 weeks, it just sounds, it's so like you take a win any way you can get it, And when you come out and play like that against Missouri, you're thankful, okay, thank God we escaped Arkansas and pulled that one out. Didn't drop one to Bowling Green, went on the road, handled Florida. Now you set yourself up to where, you're technically at the top of the standings in the conference because you're 3-0, and most people have only played, 2 games. If they played 3, then they have at least 1 loss. That's not something that I was very dialed in on preseason of thinking the tiebreaker scenarios and who needs to do what. And now I'm okay, Bama only beat South Carolina by 2. We need to beat them by more than that if it comes down to a tiebreaker situation. So, which all of that, we're not even to that level yet with this team. We still have a long way to go. But with everything being on the table, I think we're all in a very optimistic but very vulnerable state with A&M struggles at the place they're playing this weekend. We've won there twice, right? And since we joined the conference,
right. So we've gone 2-4 in Starkville since joining the SEC, and I'll point out the 2 seasons when we won in Starkville were 2012, which I think everybody knows what A&M did that season, going 11-2, winning the Cotton Bowl, Johnny Manziel winning the Heisman. And then 2020, which A&M went 9-1, won the Orange Bowl. So I say it's not a coincidence. I mean, it's a little bit of a coincidence that in the 2 seasons A&M was able to win in Starkville, it's their 2 best seasons in the SEC, finishing top 5 both times. So I don't think it's going too far to say that winning this weekend, not just because it gets you to 4-0, not just because it sets up what's to come, but just from the kind of good omens perspective, I think it's going to, maybe give a lot of A&M fans optimism if we can pull that off. And I'll even throw back out there one of the more haunting losses in Starkville is you go back to 2016, and that was when A&M was 6-1 going in there, was number 4 in the country. In fact, was number 4 in the initial batch of college football playoff rankings. And I will say, very similar to right now, this was a fan base that was pretty pumped up, that was really kind of thinking a lot of ourselves. We'd beaten Tennessee, who had been in the top 10 and had been undefeated up until then. And everything was in front of that team. And what that team did is just proceed to not win a single Power 5 game the rest of the season. So I'm not predicting that at all. But just to say that, look, we have been there, that we know how this kind of thing can go south, and how all this optimism and hope that we have right now can go away in a hurry. But hey, in that season, it all started going downhill in Starkville. So if you can win on Saturday, you kind of once again start to diverge from that path, hopefully. And I'll even throw out one other, I'll say, similarity to that season. One of the things that derailed that season was our quarterback, Trevor Knight, getting an AC joint injury, which knocked him out for the season, and he never came back. That, of course, same thing that Connor Wigman injured. The difference being that Wigman has already recovered and is already back in the lineup. So,
right.
So maybe that's good omen number 2, is that what we had the AC joint injury happen, but we moved past it.
Well, and to go back to 2012, like that team had, I think by the time they played Mississippi State, they had lost to Florida and LSU. I think we were ranked, but not super high.
I think they were ranked higher than we were going into.
They were, yeah, because they had played nobody, and they were undefeated. And we went on the road and just waxed them, and kind of like re-announced us to be like, hey, like we're still, like we still have a really good team. We're on the right path here. I think they played Bama the very next week, and we know how that went. A&M kind of already had that moment of, like, against Missouri, that announcement, like, hey,
yeah,
I know everyone watched us against Notre Dame. That wasn't our best, but here's what we can do. And what we can do is beat a ranked team by 31 points, 34 if Drinkwitz doesn't go for a field goal, down 34 points with a few seconds left.
What a just like give up move.
Yeah, no, it's all time bad.
Either that or he gambles.
Yeah, big time.
Because that hit the over.
Yeah, that definitely screwed up my pick'em, but so we've had that moment, but like I feel like I'm trying to walk a tightrope of the weird magic of college football and the superstitiousness with just like trying to analyze our opponent as if they were anybody else. I'm trying to do both here. So looking at Mississippi State, they are, by a power rating standpoint, the worst team in the SEC. I think Bill Connolly has them in the 70s out of the entire country. There may even be an FCS team rated higher than them. Actually, that's probably not true. They're probably right in front of them. But nevertheless, worst team in the country based on their performance so far this season. They're on a backup quarterback, and you had some statistics, or I guess some notes on everything that they are last in. And
it's a lot.
It's quite exhaustive, yeah.
Well, and I only did it for defense. I'm sure there's probably
Yeah,
some offensive stuff in there too. But yeah, but it's off the top of my head. I'm probably going to miss a couple, but there was rushing defense. Oh, wait, last in the SEC, I should say.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
rushing defense, passing defense, total defense, scoring defense, sacks, first downs given up, third down conversion rate allowed, and yard plays of 10 or more yards allowed.
And
So
and GDP or something like that.
yeah, and healthcare and economy and all that stuff as well.
As
But
far as the
yeah, it's
state of
safe to
Mississippi
say,
goes.
yeah, like that defense, not great, Bob. Um,
Yeah,
it's that, and that's the thing that I keep coming back to for this game is because yeah, we all say, look, it's an SEC road game. It is a place where A&M has struggled, and while I do feel like for most teams in the SEC, maybe this year more than others, even there's a ton of teams that can beat you on any given Saturday if you're not playing your A game. Um, I'm not sure Mississippi State is one of them.
yeah,
As much as I don't want to sound overconfident in a place where we have lost 2 out of 3 times we've been there, uh, this team just looks really bad. Yeah, and I will say offensively, it seems like they've found some things. Offensively, they're decent, but the defense just has so many issues that it's hard. It's hard to imagine a loss happening. But I'll always add the caveat of you never know that if you give up like a special teams touchdown or
yeah.
a pick six or
Right.
just, like crazy stuff happens and anyone can beat anybody. But as an A&M fan, just looking at the way the two teams stack up, it's hard not to be optimistic.
Yeah, and I think it kind of just it adds to the already very advantageous schedule that we have because you know our quarterback has only started 11 games in his career. He started 3 this year. One was bad, 2 were pretty good. I mean, I think I think 2 were actually very very good. But he just needs. I feel like he just needs more continuity, and the offense needs more. The offense needs more reps together, and just to keep building that chemistry. And there's no better team to do that against, coming off of what you just did to Missouri, than the team that has the worst defensive, stat in every single category. So hopefully, I think the hope for A&M is, I think they should win this game by a fairly wide margin. But what I really want to see is I want to see the offense go out there and look similar to how it looked against Missouri, to where it's in sync. They're not making mistakes. We're making accurate passes, making good decisions, that kind of thing. Blocking, just play a clean game on offense and show us what you just showed us a few weeks ago, and keep that kind of train rolling.
Yeah, and I think I agree. That's really important because as much as we all want to just look at what this team did against Mizzou and say, "Oh, that's who they're going to be going forward," um, you can very easily say we saw this offense even with Connor Wigman struggle mightily against Notre Dame, and then with Marcel Reed came in, they looked really good against Florida, but then looked very average against Bowling Green. Um, but then looked by far the best they've looked all year against Missouri. Um, and while we all kind of think this team is ascending, they're doing this. It's not going to be just a straight line up. It could be up and then down and then back up again along the way. So, and that's just that's part of not necessarily a young team, but a team that's new within the scheme, within the coaching staff.
Yeah, yeah,
Is you're not going to necessarily get the same output every single week. At least early on, you hope that they find that consistency over the course of the year because if we get the version of Connor Wigman and the version of this offense that we got against Missouri, I think A&M's a really tough team to beat the rest of the way.
yeah. And I mean, we talked about, like making mistakes, like bad turnovers and kind of fluky things. And Georgia had some of that against Mississippi State last weekend. and they still scored 41 and had like 600 yards of offense. And on a per play basis, they dominated that game. Now to Mississippi State's offense, freshman quarterback, the president, Michael Van Buren. But I thought Blake Shapen was probably like he was playing decently well. I mean, I know they're 1-5. They got waxed by was it Toledo, whoever it
It was
was.
Toledo. Yeah.
Yeah, like bad loss, like by 20, 30 plus points.
25.
Yeah, yeah, and
That's still their worst. That's still their worst loss of the year, by the way.
that's kind of insane.
I don't know how that happens.
Even more than Texas and Georgia.
Yeah, because I was looking it up earlier today. I was curious. Texas was 22. I think Florida was 17, and then of course
Yeah.
Georgia was 10.
Yeah. So Shapen goes down in the Florida game. Van Buren comes in, plays against Texas, plays against Florida. Against Florida, like the thing about their offense, their offensive line is bad, just straight up bad. I don't think they have big difference makers at running back, but they got some nice receivers. They have a receiver named Akari, who's very fast, got behind Georgia's defense a couple times. Kevin Coleman was a big recruit once upon a time, very talented player. And they schemed some things up against Georgia to get just guys like wide open. And, it was some of the things that we kind of saw Missouri do, although Missouri had a better line, quarterback, and receivers than Mississippi State does. But the one thing about our defense that I didn't like through the first six games that was fixed for the most part against Missouri was just the lapses in coverage, and just just blowing a coverage, forgetting an assignment, and letting a guy run free. And Mississippi State's head coach is Jeff Lebby, who was offensive coordinator at Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Very air raidy type offense. And Van Buren I think he's getting better as a passer. Made some nice throws last week. So if we go out and shut their offense down, don't say, "Oh, it's Mississippi State, like they suck." We should shut them down. I think it's a positive. It's a step in a positive direction for a defense to go out and play like we know they can, and just the way it is for the offense to go out and play the way we know they can.
Yeah, and you look across the SEC, and Bama lost to Vandy and struggled with South Carolina. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. Kentucky took Georgia to the wire. There's examples across the board of teams that we don't think are anything special, giving teams that we think are pretty good all their money's worth. Anytime you can win an SEC game comfortably, I think you have to walk away from that as a positive sign. I mean, because ultimately, not every game is going to be that way, but for the most part, that's what good teams do is you win games that you should win in the manner that you should win them, because everyone has clunkers, but you stack too many of those up and all of a sudden the clunkers kind of just are what you are.
Yeah.
And so, I'd much rather see us just come out, look like the superior team from the jump, and just have a nice casual Saturday watch.
Yeah. And that's the thing that bugged me about the 2020 season with Jimbo and Kellen Mond and a great defense and Anaya Smith is when they play Mississippi State, they were, if you watch the game, they were very clearly the superior team and probably should have won that game like 42-7. Well, the final was 28-14 because they jacked around on offense. They had a ball hit off a guy's face mask and go 30 yards the other way for a pick six, and just weird kind of ugly stuff. And I feel like that stuff it shouldn't matter, but it does. Well, it does kind of matter because it's like, hey, if you can't play a clean football game, then if you just do that over and over, then you're probably not a very great team. But when the media and people are kind of like scoreboard watching a little bit, like because they're not going to watch this game, they're watching Texas, Georgia, and whoever else is playing this weekend. When they scroll the little stat tracker or the scoreboard and see, A&M 17, Mississippi State 13, they're gonna be like, oh, like this is a pretty close game. If it's if the final's A&M 49, Mississippi State 10, that's a little bit more palatable, and it's just the showing of a good team. Not that when anybody in the media says it all matters one bit, but it would be nice to have a team dominate when they're supposed to. Even when, off the big win against Missouri, that was awesome. But this is a team that you should win handily against. So let's go out there and do that, and don't be a one hit wonder.
Yeah, yeah. But and I still think the more important thing is how the team looks.
Yeah,
And you right, like you said, not everyone's going to watch the game, but for us fans, it's just as important of like, how do we think this team is going to look the rest of the year? Because if we're up 34-10, at the start of the fourth quarter, and then we take our foot off the gas and they score 10 points and we win 34-20, on paper, if you're just looking at the score right, you're like, oh, that was like a half decent game. But anyone that watched it was like, no, like A&M could have won by 30 if they had wanted to, and they just.
that's exactly how the game with Georgia went last week. I think the final was 41-31. It could have very easily been 55 to 21 or 20.
Yeah, I mean that was how the Florida game was for us, really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like we haven't seen, like I think some teams, it's easy to come out of a bye week a little bit sluggish. Are we going to come out crisp and execute at a high level? Or are we going to take a minute to kind of get going, and then even then, like once you do get rolling, you should be able to pull away pretty quickly. But I think we want to see a team that's focused. I think our coach wants to see players that are focused on the task at hand and not resting on their laurels from 2 weeks ago.
God willing.
Yeah, but speaking about what's to come and what's on the table here, and the schedule, like we talked all off season about, this schedule is it's very fortunate for A&M. It's very manageable. There's not even back-to-back road games anywhere in here. There's the bye week was very well placed with where it is. Your road game is at one of the worst teams, or maybe the worst team in the conference. But after that, it's still pretty manageable. You host LSU, who big win against Ole Miss last week. Was kind of lucky to get out of there with a win. I think both teams played pretty poorly, and LSU was kind of the last man standing. They trailed the entire game to the very last play in overtime. Obviously, a huge home field advantage, but that's definitely the one I think a lot of our fan base has circled as, get past Mississippi State this weekend, set up for a big showdown with LSU next week. Fingers crossed it's a night game. And then if you win that, you're really in the driver's seat for, to be in contention for the SEC title. Let's talk about LSU, Auburn, South Carolina. Actually, skip Auburn. LSU, because I have no clue what to make of them. They don't have a quarterback. Their coach hates all their quarterbacks. Yeah, it's not great for them right now. But LSU, I think if there's a team that can, maybe take advantage of some things on our defense, it could be them. It's like they have one of the best O-lines in the country, in the conference. That matches up well, with our very good defensive line. It's going to be a great battle, if we can, put pressure on Nussmeier. But even with some injuries, they've got some really good receivers. The defense is very leaky in pass coverage, very banged up on defense. So, I thought preseason LSU and Missouri were a couple teams that A&M could really run the football on and pull off wins. They did it against Mizzou. LSU is TBD, but I think LSU's on the top 10 this week. Is that right?
Yeah, I want to say they're number 9.
Yeah. And I don't think that's valid, but it'll all get solved on the field. But your thoughts on LSU and a potential pretty big matchup next Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think LSU. I kind of agree with you that I felt like maybe they were rated a little bit too highly going into the year, just because of what they lost from last season. When you lose Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, you see what those guys are doing in the NFL. Like they were NFL ready players who just happened to be playing in college last year.
I mean, I think Neighbors is the only good Giants receiver since Odell Beckham. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pissed that they finally hit on a receiver, and now they have a good one. So he's awesome. Thomas is awesome. Jaden Daniels has
And
proven me wrong.
yeah, I mean, Jaden
So
Daniels
badly.
he looks instantly like the best quarterback from that draft class.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and then you add in, they're having a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. Even if those are upgrades, it's still a lot of churn, to put a team in the top 10. That said, it's certainly, and I think it's kind of played out this way over their schedule so far. It's a team that probably is going to drop another game or two over the course of the year, but is also talented enough to win like any individual games left on their schedule. Just because you mentioned they have the O-line. I think they still have some weapons. Nussmeier's, he's got some flaws, but he can also really light it up if he's on that day. I'm going to be really interested to see what they look like this Saturday against Arkansas.
Yes, for sure.
I think because we saw Arkansas take down Tennessee, of course, the week after they played us, and this is kind of the next big test for both of those teams. Because if Arkansas can win that one, all of a sudden they're what, 3-1 in the SEC with A&M being their only loss.
Gosh, that's wild to say.
Yeah. And so while that would maybe encourage you a little bit more as an A&M fan, it would also kind of take some of the luster off of that LSU game. So it's kind of the battle of narratives, if you will.
It's a very tight rope because I feel like with that game and with another game this weekend, Texas and Georgia, which Aggie fans may not want to hear this, but it may be more advantageous for Texas to win that game and give Georgia a second loss.
Yeah, I mean, because when it comes to tiebreakers, you with Texas that, I mean, they're on our schedule.
Yeah.
And so we can go through, and if we win against them, then we own the tiebreaker, and that's end of story. But we don't play Georgia, and so if you end up with the same SEC record, you'd have to start going down that list of tiebreakers, and you just don't know which one's going to trip you up. It's a lot more of a gray area.
Yeah, and so
That said, I mean, I'm still going to be rooting against. Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as a win-win. So I mean, but for LSU, I think I've kind of come around to your way of thinking on hoping they beat Arkansas, because I think A&M should beat LSU. I think they absolutely can and should, and I think it gives you like if you win, you get the tiebreaker. You hand them a loss, you're 5-0 in conference. Hopefully that's all great, but I think having the cachet of like a top 10 win, maybe they're who knows. They're ranked in the top 7 or something if they win this weekend. Maybe it's prime. It's going to be a primetime game, I'm assuming. Don't know what time slot, but a lot of eyes are going to be on that game if we're ranked whatever we are and they're in the top 10. I think that would go a long way to, especially if you go out and play really well and beat them, handily. Not to get ahead of myself, but to do that for a second time to another top 10 team, it's starting to build your resume to where you're not just beating up on, kind of the perceived like middle tier of the SEC, like beating an LSU team with no conference losses who's in the top 10 and securing the tiebreaker, getting the cachet. I think that's probably better for A&M than Arkansas beating them.
Yeah. And, we're starting to get to that point in the schedule where teams can't hide anymore. Because to this point, you've had a lot of undefeated teams or one-loss teams that it was mostly just a result of, they haven't played anybody or they've only played one good team. But as you get further and further into the year, if you're in the SEC or the Big Ten or one of these major conferences, at some point you're playing multiple really good teams, and the team that you are is going to sort itself out. But yes, like as an A&M fan, it's exciting to still have this on the table at this point. But my big thing, and like just going back years and years as a fan is, it's hard to remember the last time we entered November really saying, okay, like we still have everything to play for. Like
Yeah.
we still control our own destiny for everything we want to do. We've had times where we're like, okay, well, we're in the chase for the SEC West, but we need a lot of things to go our way. We need Bama to lose probably. So
I remember in 2020, or sorry, in 2021,
yeah,
when like the Zach Calzada games where
yeah.
we had lost to Mississippi State and Arkansas, but then we beat Alabama, we beat Auburn, and I'm like, man, if LSU can beat Bama, like we're in the driver's
Oh
seat.
yeah, we,
Like,
we all had that conversation.
yeah, and like obviously, like it didn't matter at all, but with the way we played the rest of the year, but this like, and even and obviously in 2012, you lost early, and when you were clicking, when you beat Alabama, like it was just a two-team BCS championship. You had no shot to get in that. So this is very exciting. Like I mean, you can dog on the 12-team playoff, and like maybe I'm sure there's certainly flaws to it, but for a lot of fan bases, especially a fan base like ours, to have this kind of excitement to where, hey, like we're not far off from really doing some damage and getting into this thing. For the rest of the teams, like everyone has warts, and obviously A&M does too. But you look at road games at South Carolina and at Auburn. Obviously, South Carolina really good defensive line. Just really iffy on offense, especially throwing the football. Obviously, love Rocket Sanders, great running back, but in that game, I feel like it's a really bad matchup for that. Like if you can't throw against A&M, if you can't throw it deep, then
Yeah,
Marcus
that's
Ratcliffe
that's
and Dalton Brooks and the defensive line are gonna just it's gonna shut your running game down. So not that I'm not worried. Like that defensive line is very good. Big test for the O line, but and they're a dangerous team. But I feel like it's a very manageable game for us.
I agree. I think South Carolina, while they've been better this year than I thought, because
Absolutely.
I thought they were gonna be not good at all this year. So they've certainly proven me wrong on that front. But I completely agree with you that matchup wise, I feel like A&M is just a bad matchup for them, but based on what they do well and what we do well. And that's just one where I think that defensive line is for A&M is just going to have a field day. And theirs is going to have success too.
Yeah.
But I think our offensive line's at least a little better equipped, and our offense overall is a little better equipped to handle the pass rush and kind of, work around it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's just so crazy how we get sucked in every year, because I was in
Oh
the
yeah.
I was the one in the preseason saying, well, we're going to go 8-4. And now at this point, now if we finish 8-4, I'm going to be so disappointed.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If we finish 9-3, I'll be disappointed. Like if you can't score one against LSU or Texas, LSU more likely, Texas, that'd be awesome. But dropping both of those, like after what we have seen that this team can do, yeah, that'd be a huge bummer. And I know in the preseason, I think one of your like a good point you had was we haven't won 9 regular season games since. I
2012.
mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, because the bowl game was 9 in 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
So like
So
hey,
yeah,
that's a tough that's a tall
it's hard
task.
to it's hard to get upset about doing that in year one of Mike Elko. That said, I totally get what you mean. That like now that we're at this point in the season, sitting here at 5-1, it's certainly 9-3, 8-4 still on the table. You never know how a season's going to play out. But it would be a bit of a letdown based on where we are right now, halfway through, sitting in first place in the SEC.
Yeah,
And look, I'm not saying we have to go win the SEC, but certainly, if you can win 9 or 10 games, if you can, squeak your way into the playoffs, like if you can make the playoffs in year one under Mike Elko, like holy
yeah.
cow,
Success. Check.
what a statement! What a statement that would be.
Yeah, and at this point, Robert, like, it's there's a decent possibility this happens, but I can't wrap my mind around A&M playing in Atlanta for the SEC title. Like after, 13 seasons that have not really coming that close. I
No,
mean,
because even in 2012, because we had the two conference losses relatively early, like even though the team was rolling by the end of the year, you already knew that that was out the window. And
yeah,
because that year, even after we beat Bama, we knew it wasn't going to happen.
yeah. And now
Um,
you're like, oh crap, like we like if just like one or two things bounce our way, like this is or we just take care of business and do it ourselves, which is certainly possible. But man, like I don't know, like that, like I'm trying to not even like put that out there. Like I'm trying to ignore that.
yeah, I mean it's pretty early for all that talk, but I
I'm
mean,
trying.
but you've got all the national people already playing up the whole thing of, oh, are we going to see A&M and Texas play on November 30th in Kyle Field and then do it a week later in Atlanta?
Yeah,
Which I mean, once again, that option's on the table. There's a
yeah.
lot of other things that could happen between now and then, but it'd be a weird one for sure.
What we need to do is just focus on what's 6 inches in front of our face,
Right, right.
like Mike Elko said, and then when we look up at the end of the year, we're gonna like where we're at.
It's how I live my life, man.
To kind of roll that in, like I feel like I haven't done enough like national or even SEC talk on here, but kind of like let's go around the SEC a little bit and maybe because like you mentioned South Carolina playing much better than you anticipated. Likewise for me. Let's talk about some of these other teams because I got to get this off my chest. Uh, Tennessee sucks. They
Yeah,
they,
what
they
happened?
they suck ass as a football team. They were lucky to beat Florida. Arkansas should have beat them by way more. For a fan base that was kind of high on their own supply this offseason
Mm-hmm.
and getting big recruiting wins and blah blah blah. They have the next best quarterback ever, Nico Iamaleava, who could definitely get there one day. That
He
is
looked
not a very
lost on
that is
Saturday.
not a good team right now,
No.
and I'm actually very happy that that's happening to them. To be quite honest,
Yeah, I mean, like that Florida game, Florida had the ball inside the Tennessee 20 three times in the first half of that game and got 0 points out of it.
yeah,
Like, how does that? I mean, oh, well, it doesn't matter how it happens. That's how you lose a football game.
yeah, yeah.
That the Florida probably should have won.
So
But
actually,
well,
on
but
that
yeah, but
point,
the shocking thing with Tennessee though was, like that the first like 3-4 weeks of the year. I mean, they were just
oh
obliterating
my
people.
gosh, yeah,
And it wasn't just cupcakes. So they played that ranked NC State team, so they just murdered them as well.
yeah.
So it's hard to tell like what was everyone they were playing early on just that bad, or are they kind of on the decline as the season goes along?
It's honestly pretty shocking to me because like once I saw them the first few weeks, and they covered against Oklahoma. Like I was pretty heavy on that one, and they didn't do it the way I thought they would. And then they've looked bad offensively 3 games in a row now, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe y'all just aren't very good. And like the defense, seems like pretty solid, like definitely an upper tier, SEC unit, but just not at all what I expected on offense. And
Yeah.
like the running backs are good; they have some decent weapons, but like that system, just like you know, they roll out of bed and score 30 points, and they're just not doing that right now.
But I feel like that's kind of the case across the entire conference
Yeah,
because you look at Bama, who beat Georgia but then lost to Vandy and barely probably should have lost to South Carolina. Um, and then you've got Georgia, who we all thought going into the year was going to be this juggernaut. Who, I mean, they struggled with Kentucky. They barely got out of that one. They handled Mississippi State, but that was probably a game lot closer than we all thought it should have been. And of course, Georgia kind of the tale of two halves against Bama, where the first half they made Bama look like the second coming of like 2019 LSU, and then the second half was almost the exact opposite. And you can go down the list, like almost every team is either, I mean, some of them are just straight bad, but even the good teams, you can point like game to game, and it's just one game they look really good, and then the
yeah.
next game you're like, well, where did that come from?
Well, and South Carolina should have beaten LSU.
Yeah,
Like they
yeah,
should have won that game. They should have beaten Alabama, or they could have beaten Alabama last week. And like they're a little better than we thought, but teams like Bama, LSU, Tennessee aren't as good. Georgia's not as good as what we thought we'd see. And really, just like it's kind of what you're seeing across the whole, like the national landscape. There's not a 2019 LSU or 2020 Alabama in the country this year. I mean, so far, Texas has played similar to what you would see from those teams. But even against Oklahoma, like they made a lot of mistakes. And we were talking pre-show. If Texas plays their A game, they win by 50 points or more in that game because OU could do nothing on offense. So like even with Texas dominant as they've been, it's been hit or miss in certain games. Mississippi State was close with them at halftime. I know that they had Manning and not Ewers and whatever else, but the next few weeks we're going to learn a lot about the rest of these football teams and our own football team. But certainly one of the more intriguing seasons that I've seen, like since I've been an adult following this stuff.
Yeah, it kind of it feels like normally by this time of year, by mid-October, you have a pretty good handle on like who the title contenders are, and you kind of feel like you've figured out that hierarchy of the season. And this year, it just feels like it's just shifted almost every single week, and I don't think it's done shifting either. Heck, we've got Army and Navy both ranked right now. That alone tells you, the chaos that's happening across college football.
Boise State has the best running back since Barry Sanders. On a statistical basis.
SMU might be like the ACC front runner.
Yeah. Miami finding a way to win games.
Florida State finding ways to lose games.
I was trying to look up and see when Alabama plays Missouri because, like, obviously we made Missouri look pretty poorly, and like they kind of messed around with Vanderbilt, who has turned out to be a pretty solid team. It's possible for Missouri to win that game against Alabama. Like that's a very possible thing that could happen.
Yeah. If they do play, that would be. That's the interesting thing this year. I feel like more than any others because with not having divisions in the SEC and also just having a bigger conference in general, there's that many more teams that you don't play. And so it's like I feel like I'm more than ever I'm paying attention to these like games where you can start drawing some like transitive conclusions. Which in some ways is pointless, but that's going to get used against you at some point. So you might as well try to find ways where that's going to point in your favor as well.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, like Bama beat South Carolina by 2 points. We need to go beat them more than that. But us having that win against Missouri by 31, I guess is what it ended up. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. Like if Bama goes in there and wins by 7, that looks really good. And like when they do the tiebreakers and whatnot, I think at a certain point it comes down to like margin over common opponents. And I'm not sure who Georgia has left, or like who they play that we play, aside from Texas. But it's really intriguing to look at the rest of the season and go like, okay, this is kind of what I'm rooting for that one, and to kind of help, not just my narrative on my team, but also help their playoff hopes and conference title hopes.
Yeah. Oh, and going back to that Mizzou win, I had looked back through basically the entirety of the Jimbo Fisher tenure here at A&M, and he coached 48 SEC games here, and there was only 2 of them that he won by an equal or more than margin of victory than A&M did against Mizzou, and that was last season against Mississippi State, who was just awful and fired their coach a week later. And then it was 2020. And it was 2020 South Carolina, who went like 2-7 and also fired their head coach. Yeah. So point is that A&M has not been in the business of blowing out quality SEC teams in recent years. So regardless of whether you think Missouri's top 10 or even top 25, I don't think they're terrible. I think they're a quality SEC team, even if they end up in kind of middle of the pack. Being able to do that to that team says something.
they're not South Carolina that's starting a graduate student at quarterback and just getting demolished behind DeMarvin Leal and Michael Clemens all game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I mentioned this on the show I did after the Missouri game, but I was trying to because I did the same thing. I was going through. I was trying to look at EPA per play for offense and defense and the difference for like all of our Power Five games for like the last 20 years, and the only three that were bigger margins than this last one was the two South Carolina games, and then the bowl game against NC State, where Travion had like 1,000,000 yards rushing, and we had a pick six, and like we really just kind of crushed them. And like I think the offensive numbers were just like a tick better, like a tenth of a just like a tenth better or 100th better in that game. So like that was a truly dominant performance against at least a good team, not definitely not a horrible bad team. So yeah, it's definitely impressive.
But should be a fun ride, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I guess to kind of bring us home here, like we talked all off season about what we thought about this team and what we expected. Over the first 6 games, I think there's two obvious answers here, but like what has kind of stood out or surprised you in terms of looking better than what you thought it would?
I mean, I think it's definitely got to be the offensive line because that was we talked all offseason that was kind of the big question mark on this team because it had been so bad the past 2 seasons, and you could talk yourself into reasons why it would be better because you had a new position coach because you're bringing back a lot of experience. But I think we all sat there and acknowledged that we could have just have easily seen this line struggle like they had in previous years. And really, I mean, I can't think of a single game where I feel like they've really struggled. I mean, certainly against Notre Dame, I think we didn't run the ball very effectively, but given what Notre Dame has on the interior of that line, that wasn't all that shocking.
Yeah,
But yeah, you definitely feel like you've seen them grow even from that to the point that I mean, last week, like Connor had all day.
yeah,
Not last week, 2 weeks ago now.
yeah,
But I mean, that was truly like 2012 O line esque.
yeah,
That
for
where he
sure.
could just stand back there and just look around for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, like when you look at the at the pressure rates on each quarterback in that game, Connors was like in the low teens, like maybe even like 10 or 11, and Brady Cook was like 45% of his
Oh my
dropbacks to that
gosh.
pressure. So, which they really hadn't allowed all season. Like they have I know we made them look bad. They have a pretty decent line. So it was pretty impressive that we did that to them and made them look so bad. No, I think like O line is the layup answer. It's among all the things that were wrong with Jimbo Fisher's tenure here. O line was probably one of his biggest undoings and failing on that front in terms of just performance, offensive line coach, like who he chose for that position and things like that. So like when I'm looking at some film from from like last year and year before of like how undisciplined we were and the very simple mistakes that we made, I'm like, man, if we could just fix that, like they'll be at least a little bit better. Like I'm not asking for Joe Moore Award offensive line, just give me a decent one. And
Yeah.
they've been flat outstanding. I think it's like one of the true strengths of the team along with the defensive line. But no, it's beautiful to see. Like, there's no reason A&M should not field a competent offensive line every single year. But what Cushing has done with these guys, playing 8 different guys and still, playing at that level, it's awesome to watch. But the other one for me was secondary. Because it was
Yeah.
our biggest weakness last season, and giving up the big plays and such, which we've still done a little bit of. We need to get cleaned up as far as big plays go. Arkansas hit a 75-yarder. Mizzou had the long touchdown. A couple of them, one got called back. But if they can fix that and keep doing what they're doing elsewhere, it's a really strong team. And even recently, I gave this group some love last week, but the receivers, man. Like from game 1 to game 6, that's a massive improvement from how they
Yeah.
played.
Yeah, and I think that's just those guys probably getting more comfortable in that scheme and everything else. But I think also, you're adding. I think Terry Bussey is getting more kind of fluent in the offense after joining the offense. What maybe midway through fall camp, and then also getting Jabray Barber back from
Yeah.
injury, and so it just I think just giving them more options there, and I think it's also just probably all the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, where just as you're seeing Wigman improve, you're seeing the offensive line improve over the course of the year, and I think the receivers improving as well. But as everyone else improves, it just makes all those other groups look even better because it's making their job easier. Because
Yeah.
receivers, it's a lot easier as a receiver when the offensive line is actually giving the quarterback time to throw.
Well, and you can run the ball so successfully because,
Yeah, yeah.
like,
Oh my gosh,
against
Le'Veon Moss is a
yes,
beast back there.
because against Florida, like they didn't really know much about Marcel Reed, and like I think we rushed for like 300 yards in that game. And then the next 2 weeks, you saw teams kind of load the box a little bit, but hey, like if you're going to beat us, it's not going to be running the ball, so you have to find another way. And now with it being truly two-dimensional on offense, it sounds very simple. There's not a lot of teams that can do that. Like LSU throws it well, they don't run it well. Bama's running game and Georgia's running game aren't that great. Like they throw it really well, but not the big bruising, running backs and tough run games that you typically see out of those teams. So, I think it's such a breath of fresh air from what we've been accustomed to for 6 seasons of. Oh, like this offense looks easy and
That was the exact term I was going to say. It was like watching that Missouri game. This first time in like years, really. Where you watch A&M offense, you're like, oh, they're just like throwing the ball to the open guy, or you just run through the hole. It's I don't know why everyone acts like this is so difficult.
Yeah, like any of us could do that.
Yeah. But that's the mark of a good offense is, we've seen, how many teams have we seen do that to us over the years?
Yes,
Where it seems
yeah,
like they're just pitch and catch and just move the ball down the field. And, it's frustrating as heck to have it be done to you, but it's very satisfying when your team can do it.
yeah, and I think uh, I was a very frustrated fan last season because I'm obviously an A&M fan and went to school there, but a diehard Cowboys fan as well. And I don't want to hear about 12 regular season wins last year. That team was not that good, but they went back to the West Coast offense. We still had Jimbo's stupid offense, and I'm like my teams are stuck in the Stone Ages, while the teams I hate the most, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Texas, are running like modern, easy offenses, and my teams aren't. And at least one of them has got it fixed. So, Cowboys, you're on the clock.
Yeah, I would say the Cowboys most definitely do not have it fixed.
No, they do not.
That was,
Which
on the bright side, I had the Lions kicker on my fantasy team last week, so
there you go.
it was a great
He
day.
had a lot of chances to to kick extra points and field goals.
Yeah.
I meant to tweet this out, but with Dallas being as bad as they are, bodes well for A&M because I cannot have two teams be good at the same time. So Rangers missed the
There you go.
playoffs. The Mavericks got waxed in the conference finals. Cowboys god awful. A&M, we're back, baby.
Just all that sports karma just moving into the A&M square. I like
That's right.
it.
Hey, if given the option, I would take this outcome. But
Oh, for sure.
I'm gonna throw my buddy Kyle a bone. For some reason, he still watches NASCAR. I don't know why, but he has sent no less than 8 messages about A&M sponsoring that car in NASCAR this weekend.
Yeah.
Have you got anything on that? I think you put a post out about it, but any details there?
If you read that post, you know everything I know about that, which is not much. But certainly it's one of those things. I mean, it's cool. I'm not a big NASCAR guy myself, but I remember we did the same thing 2 years ago. I think with Jeff Gordon when he was on his way out. But hey, man, like it's an innovative way of using your marketing dollars. So
yeah,
I love it. It's much more exciting than just seeing a billboard or seeing another TV commercial.
yeah, for sure. he's got some comments about Tony Stewart that I'm not going to read on the air, but yeah, I'm not a fan of Tony Stewart either. Actually, glad I
Are
thought
there
of this.
Tony Stewart fans? Because I feel like like I said, I'm not a big NASCAR guy, but everyone I talk to that does follow it hates him.
All I'll say about Tony Stewart is there was a thing he was involved in where a person got killed because of a car he was driving, and I think he was let off the hook, in my opinion. Don't know if it was on purpose. I'm just saying, weird deal. Don't like the guy.
Yeah.
But last thing, for real this time, we keep seeing drops or little hints of a box that says secret jersey on it from the A&M media account. This can't be the black jersey, right? It's got to be something else.
I think it is.
Is it?
Well, and I think they kind of are dropping the ball a little bit there, because I think what they're actually hinting at is that we haven't seen the rest of that uniform.
Like the whole thing.
We've seen the jersey, obviously, because they wanted to sell the jersey for the entire football season. But yeah, we don't know like what the helmet or the pants or what the whole uniform set looks like.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm guessing, that's probably going to come out maybe like early next week. And that's truly a guess. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
But I think that's what that is about.
Because the box says secret
But
jersey, right?
I agree. It is confusing because the box definitely says jersey. And hey, I mean, maybe they got something else up their sleeve, and I'm going to be proven wrong on that. But I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if we had two like alternate uniforms in the season.
I
Because
mean,
that starts feeling like a little bit of overkill.
I think Sumlin had like 2 or 3 his first season.
He did. But I mean, I definitely, I'm glad to see us go back to having like the multiple combinations and maybe like the one alternate a year.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be Oregon either, where it's like it looks completely different every single week.
So I thought maroon out was a strange choice for Missouri.
I really thought that they would have saved that for the Texas game.
Are they gonna do it twice? Like, was that the official maroon out game?
No, I think they said now like there isn't an official maroon out game because it's like it's supposed to be that every game is a maroon out.
Fair.
But I really thought that would be one that they would hold that combo back. Do that against Texas.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, who knows? Because at this point, the only combo that we've seen more than once is just the traditional maroon helmet, maroon jersey, white pants.
Right.
But we wore those against McNeese and Bowling Green.
Yeah.
So for all of the, Power 4 opponents, it's been a different combination every time. So I'll be interested to see what they do this week.
Yeah. If they go all white helmet, everything.
Yeah.
We've only had one. For Arkansas,
Florida's the only road game because Arkansas was the white helmet with maroon pants. Maroon
that's
jersey.
That's right.
Now, I may kind of also be dictated by what Mississippi State's going to do. Like if they're going to wear white helmets,
I think they're doing something. They're doing something for this game. I think.
Are they
like a throwback or something? But
yeah, if they wear their white helmets, I gotta think we're probably going to wear maroon helmets.
Right, maroon, white,
or maroon, white, maroon. We haven't seen that.
That's true. Yeah.
Since like 2019, I think.
I've never been a huge fan of that look, but I mean, I'm not either. It's certainly, it's in the repertoire. So
I prefer the maroon, white overall, but it's like this year it's all about variety apparently. So
yeah, if I'm making a prediction, this will probably be wrong. I think if there's a secret jersey and it's not the whole uniform, I wonder if they do like our regular, home jersey. But instead of the number on the side, it's just like the 2 white stripes that we used to have under the Sumlin years, which I always liked. I kind of wish they would have kept that in, but I like what they have now. But if I'm throwing darts because I have no idea what else could you do with a secret jersey because we already have a black one. We already have we've seen the white helmet, but I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, the only other thing I thought about was it the 98 throwbacks with like the tie-dye collar.
Yeah, that's true. And
but I mean, obviously we just did that back in 2018.
Yeah.
I think. So that's probably not it. That's just me personally loving the tie-dye collar and probably
Oh
trying to
yeah,
like, wish cast it back into existence.
yeah.
Um,
That, that, that
I do think, like you said, that those vertical stripes down the shoulder is probably more likely, and I could see them doing that. And honestly, I think that'd be a cool look because I always really liked the shoulder stripes. The
yeah.
things about that uniform I didn't like as much was the beveled numbers
Oh
never
yeah.
really looked all that great. And I do prefer like the glossy helmet as well. So I think if you kept the current set and just added the shoulder stripes, I think that could look really sharp.
Yeah, I've always like it's kind of a unique twist on like a pretty like simple uniform because like I think Mississippi State had kind of similar. I think they had one stripe down the shoulder that was vertical.
Yeah.
But like if you did that, if you made that your base uniform, that would stand out from everybody else in college football because no one else does it. Like it'd be like Michigan's helmet or something like that because it is
Yep.
very unique.
Yeah, that was what I always liked about it was something that you could turn that game on and within 3 seconds you knew that it was A&M.
Yeah,
Yeah, without seeing a logo or anything else.
yeah. Um, Definitely need to have some uniform talk in the off season. I know we tried to get a draft together before, so we'll definitely get to that. But hey, it's in the heat of it right now. Like this is peak prime football season. I wish this weather would stick around. It's not going to, but
No.
unfortunately, but
That is one thing to keep in mind with because the rumor is that we're going to be wearing the black uniform or the black jersey at least for LSU. And man, we better get a night game because I think the high that day is looking like it's going to be like 90.
yeah, I had the black quarter zip in my cart for a week, and then I just got a black Old Sarge T-shirt instead because I'm not trying to be in that all day and just sweat at a tailgate. So
Yeah,
um,
I've got so much like A&M winter, or at least warm, cold weather gear that is you're like, oh, this would be really great to wear to like a game, and then you never wear it because you're like, there's never a game that I can wear it to.
yeah,
It's like the worst thing is that like maybe I wear like a polo and jeans.
yeah, yeah. I got my worst sunburn of the year at the freaking Missouri game, and like that's October. So yeah, that's Texas weather for you. But well, I appreciate you making the time to come on, and I know it's exciting times for now. Hopefully, it stays that way. But I think if we can vanquish the Starkville curse and win in a election year, things should be good for our Aggies. But if it keeps up, and even if it doesn't, we'll try to get you back on in the coming weeks. Still on baby watch. Due date of Thanksgiving could happen at any moment, but
Oh yeah, man. I
we're
know. When ours came, it was the due date was supposed to be like December 5th, and he was born November 1st. So,
nice. I
so
would
you
prefer
never know.
to I'd prefer to not watch the A&M Texas game at the hospital. So earlier is better in for this scenario. But thanks so much. If you're, I'm sure you already are. If you're not, keep it tuned in to goodbullhunting.com. And yeah, we'll get you back on soon and beat the hell out of Mississippi State.
Yeah, gig 'em.
Thanks, Robert.